When we look at setups in ACC, we will often see this. The setup is using the minimum amount of preload that is possible. Now, this is one thing where ACC differs greatly from reality. GT3 cars in real life, they often use a very much locked differential. To understand why this works in ACC, we first have to understand how a differential works. Now have a look at this corner. Clearly, the distance which the left wheel has to travel is far greater than the distance which the right wheel has to travel. This means that when the car is driving through the corner, that the left wheel has to rotate at a higher speed than the right wheel. Now let's say our car doesn't have a differential and the engine is directly connected via the drive shaft to a rigid rear axle. This would mean that in order to achieve the corner, the inside wheel would have to slip and rotate at a faster speed than it should be doing, and the outside tire also has to slip and it has to rotate at a slower speed than it should be going. Now this is obviously not ideal and it would create a lot of friction, and so to achieve that we have an axle where the engine can produce power to both wheels and the wheels can still rotate at a different speed, we need a differential. Now we don't have to understand in detail how the differential mechanically works, it's just important to understand that now with the differential, one axle, both the left and rear tire can rotate at different speeds, while still the engine can deliver power to both wheels. Now there is one problem with the differential, and it is that it kills traction on corner exit. This is because the dynamic load change between the left and right tires. When we go through a corner, the load between the left and rear tire is shifted dynamically towards the outside tire. So that means that the outside tire has more grip available than the inside tire. So now when we try to accelerate in a straight line, having a differential is not really a problem, because then the platform of the car is flat and we have the same amount of grip available both on the left and right tire, and the car can accelerate fine. But when we try to accelerate while going out of a corner, then we still have that change in load between the two tires. Now what happens if we try to accelerate, the power gets delivered to both wheels. However, the inside tire has, because of that change in load, has a lot less grip available than the outside tire. And this means that the inside tire spins up quickly, while the outside tire, we are still nowhere near the maximum amount of grip that it delivers. So, and what makes this even worse is that when a tire spins up, it's the grip that it produces is further decreased. So it only means that the inside tire is spinning more and more, and so you would be, if you don't have traction control in the ref limiter very quickly, while the outside tire, which could produce the actual grip, is not even used properly, and so you have a bad corner exit. So for road cars, this is not really a problem, as they are not focused to have the best lap times on track, and they often run with this configuration that I just described, which we call an open diff configuration. But for race cars, this is a real problem if they can't accelerate properly out of the corner. So in order to prevent this, the so-called differential lock was invented. Now this is an additional construction which is added to the differential, which basically sets a threshold for the force which the two different tires have to produce in order for the differential to activate and allow slip. So there are like two plates that are rotating against each other, and they are producing this force. And what you do with this setting, this differential lock, you basically determine how much these two plates are pressed against each other, and so also how much force is needed in order to make this differential spin up. Now what that does is, when you are driving through a corner, the tires obviously have a lot of grip and they will produce much more force than this differential lock can withstand. And so when driving through a corner, these plates rotate against each other and the tires will still be able to rotate at a different speed. But when you try to accelerate out of a corner, now when one tire tries to spin up, it also has to turn on these different plates on the differential, and does also deliver grip to the outside tire. So now that we have a lot of these differential lock, the outside tire is always forced to do a lot of this acceleration work as well, and now we have much better traction out of a corner. Obviously, it's still not ideal. We still cannot accelerate on the maximum amount of grip for both tires like we could in a straight line, but since when an inside wheel tries to spin up, since it always has to also deliver some of that power to the outside wheel, this means that the outside wheel always has to accelerate out of the corner as well, and this gives us much better traction out of the corner. Now, the reason why this works so well in ACC is because in the physics of ACC, it almost never allows there to be a big difference in wheel speed between the left and rear tire. So even if you're driving with low or basically no preload, and you go full throttle on exit, there's still will both tires will spin up and not just one of them. So that means if you are driving with no preload in ACC, the car will be a bit more understeer, a bit more stable on throttle, but you will still get a very good exit, even a better exit than if you're actually giving the car a lot of preload. We are going to test that in the simulator in a second, but I found out that if you add a lot of preload to the car, you often have to use a higher traction control settings, because when you try to go on throttle, the car will get oversteery, but if you set the preload to the minimum and you go on throttle, the car just accelerates out of the corner, because it is more stable with the low preload, but the whole reason why we even need a preload why we even need to preload the differential in the first place, it doesn't even exist in ACC. There's no big difference in wheel speed between left and rear tire. You cannot just spin up one tire and not the other. You always spin up both tires. And so when you use no preload in ACC, you are getting the benefit of having a more stable car on exit, but are not having the disadvantage of not being able to accelerate out of the corner at all. So when you are using this no preload setting, you are basically having no disadvantages. You only have the advantage of having a more stable car on throttle, but are not having the disadvantage of not being able to accelerate. So I'm going to go into my sim rig now, and I'm going to give you a driving example. So for this example, I choose the Audi and to drive it at Kyalami. And for this, we're just going to take the aggressive preset. We're going to disable the traction control, and we're going to go 20 Newton meter as far left as we can go on the preload. And also I'm going to activate the motec so we can have a look at that. And yeah, let's do some laps. So we are here with TC off and with the minimum amount of preload. So what we would expect to happen is that we would have a very hard time trying to exit the corners if we go on throttle. So we're gonna try this right now. Going through first corner. And as you can see, I'm full throttle already, and we have no problem whatsoever accelerating out of the first corner. Also, this one here, I'm full throttle in second gear. No problem whatsoever. Also here. And I'm full throttle. Just no problem at all. So what I'm trying to do now is I want to overdo it a bit, and I want to actually get the rear tires to spin up, and I want to have a look at if there's actually a big difference in wheel speed or not. So we're gonna go full throttle here. Nice slide out of the second corner. But as you've seen, the car was sliding completely with both rear tires, and it was not like the revs went up, but the car was not actually sliding, which would have happened if only one of the tires spun up. So do the same thing here again. Yeah, that was a little bit too much, but you get the idea. If only one tire would spin up, the revs would go up, but the rear would actually be doing much because, yeah, the unloaded inside tire is not really that important. Can do it again, trying to... Yeah, okay, we didn't really have any slide there, but yeah, we can take away from this that we can exit the corner just fine. And I have completed the lap, so we're gonna have a look at motec right now and see what the data tells us. Right, so here we have the data from the lap that we just did. And what is interesting now is if we have a look at the wheel speed. And now the top line, this diagram, shows the wheel speed of the 4 different tires. And there are a few occasions where the wheel speed from the front and rear wheels differ. So this is the moments where I had oversteer, where I slided the car. And one of the points is here, for example. I can zoom in a little bit. And now we can see here the red and orange line are the front tires, and the purple and light blue line are the rear tires. Now you can see here in the top left, it says the speed of the tires in meter per second, and you can clearly see that the rear tires were spinning up at that point. For example, if we have a look at here, it says the wheel speed for both front tires is 24 meter per second, and the wheel speed for both rear tires is 29 meter per second. But the important thing is that there is no difference between, or basically no difference between the 2 rear tires. Also, if we go a little bit further, here we can see the right rear tire is 32 meters per second, the left rear tire is 34 meters per second. So a slight difference, but not what you would expect to happen from driving the car with no preload at all. So yeah, this basically proves the thing that I felt while driving, that the rear tires only spin up both at once, even when we are driving with basically no preload. Now, in order to show this to you better, I want to make a comparison between R factor 2, where the differential is simulated in a different way, and ACC, where I will do the exact same thing to analyze what the differential is doing and compare them to each other. So what we are going to do is we're going to drive with this car, the BMW M2 CS, because this is a car which has an open diff, and both in ACC and in R factor 2 we cannot change the preload of the differential, so we have to drive with the open diff the whole time. Right, for the track I choose Oschersleben, but it doesn't really matter for the test. We're just gonna go into the setup and make sure the traction control is turned off. And as you can see here, the settings for the differential, we can't adjust anything. So we're just going to drive with the standard setup, and we'll see how the differential behaves. Right, you can see already that the car is definitely struggling to get its power transmitted to the ground, so which is of course because of the low preload, but we're gonna make the extreme test for this. So what I'm going to do is, second gear, I'm gonna drive with one tire on the grass, and that is not the perfect place for this, but I'm going to drive with one tire on the grass, the other one on the road, and we're gonna see what happens if I go on throttle, like right here. And as you have seen there already, we were immediately in the limiter. So the car immediately spun up its right tire, but we were still going like 40 kilometers per hour. Right, I can demonstrate the same thing again here. See, we are only 40 kph fast now. The car is immediately in the limiter, even though we are only going 40-50 kph. So what that means is that the tire which is on the grass is spinning up and this is why the car is in the limiter. But the other tire, which is on track, which has the grip, is not spinning up. But we can test this one more time. You see, we were going 60 kilometers per hour, but the car was in the limiter. And without, you can see that the car can do 100 kilometers per hour normally in the limiter in second gear. So we know now from this test, where one tire is on the grass and the other one isn't, that the tire on the grass is immediately spinning out and rotating at 100 kilometers per hour, whilst the other tire is only doing half the speed, which, to be fair, is what you would expect from an open diff car. So yeah, very clearly shows exactly what you would expect. And now we're going to do the same test in ACC. Right, so we're doing the exact same thing in ACC. As you can see, this is the exact same car, the BMW M2 CS Racing. And we're just gonna go into the setup, use the default one, make sure traction control is turned off. And as you can see, we have that 20 Newton meter of preload, but we cannot change it. So this car is, yeah, again forced to drive with an open diff car. And again, we are also going to have a look at the motec later. And yeah, we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna put 2 tires on the grass, the other 2 on the road. Then we're gonna go full throttle and see what happens. So the first thing which you noticed when you drive this car out of the garage, we have way more traction than in the R-Factor car. So yeah, that already shows quite a big difference. We can go full throttle second gear mid corner and the car accelerates just fine, even though it's an open diff car, which is already very strange. But yeah, now we're going to do the exact same test. You see, the car can go just like an R-Factor, 100 kph in second gear. It's the exact same car, same gear ratio. But yeah, now we're gonna do the same test. We're gonna put 2 wheels on the grass and now watch what happens. Full throttle. Did you see that? The car was accelerating just fine. In R-Factor, when we put 2 tires on the grass and went full throttle, the car immediately hit the limiter. Because the tire which was on the grass, which didn't have any differential preload to help it, was immediately on 100 kph. And the other one didn't got any force and we were barely accelerating. But in ACC, it took the car forever to hit the limiter, because there was just no difference in wheel speed between left and right tire. We can do it again. Watch this. Full throttle. You could see that the rear tires were spinning up a little bit, but it was both of them. Yeah, this, I know it sounds crazy, but one tire is on the grass, the other one isn't. We go full throttle and both rear tires spin a little bit. But it's there was no big difference in wheel speed whatsoever. And yeah, this just shows the whole problem of the simulation of the differential in ACC. It's the thing that I explained earlier, where there's just no big difference in wheel speed between left and right tire in ACC, even if you completely disable the preload, or if you perhaps drive with a car like this, which just doesn't have any diff lock whatsoever. And yeah, we're still gonna have a look at, I'm just gonna complete the lap and we're gonna have a look at the motec data so that you can see what I mean here. Right, so we are in motec and I'm just gonna open the lap that we just did. Right, we're already on the correct page and we see this was where I started going. Here I was just standing in the pits, and now we have to see where there is the difference in wheel speed between left and right tire, and we can see here it starts. So this was the point where I had one tire on the grass and the other one on the tarmac. And again, I'm going to zoom in, and as usual, the orange and red lines are the front tires and the light blue and purple line are the rear tires. And very clearly you can see that there's a big difference between the speed of the front tires and rear tires. Look, you can see the front tires are doing at this point 7 meters per second, and the rear tires are doing 21 meters per second, but there is no difference whatsoever between the left and rear tire. I mean, just think about it. We are driving with an open diff car, a car that has virtually no preload on the diff. We are going full throttle. The two tires are on the grass and the other two are on the surface. And now look at this. Both rear tires spin up completely simultaneously. There's no difference in speed between the left and rear tire. This makes just no sense. Right, we can look at a different example. We just looked at this one, and now we can look at this one. And again, it shows the same picture. Both rear tires the whole time have exactly the same speed. Just remember, two tires on the grass, two tires on the asphalt. It's crazy to think about. So yeah, I don't think there's much else to say. Kunos definitely has to rework the behavior of the diff in ACC in order to have a difference in wheel speed between the left and rear tires, because this would mean that if we drive with a very low preload setup like we're doing right now, this would then means that the inside tire would just spin up, and either you just have a very bad exit, or the traction control cuts your power immediately, and you're just going to have very bad exits with very low preload. So yeah, this would fix the whole setup thing and would definitely make ACC quite a bit more realistic. But yeah, the way it is right now is just not really realistic. Kunos definitely has to update the differential. Right, that's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Maybe I'll make a video again in 2 years. Bye.